Hello everybody and welcome to Monday's edition of the Chris Pritchard Cycling News Show. What a bloody busy week of Tour de France action we had. Finally, we've got to the first rest day of this year's Tour de France and there is so much to talk about. So in today's episode, because it is a rest day, let's take a look back at my 5 talking points of this year's Tour de France so far. Before we do that, if you've not done already, please hit that like button, please hit that subscribe button. We're almost at 30,000 subs. My target was only 20,000 this year, but all of a sudden I'm becoming very, very greedy and I would love to get to 30,000 subs by the end of this Tour de France. And don't forget, we're going to be covering the Giro and La Vuelta, as well as pretty much every other major race towards the end of the year, just like we're doing now with the Tour de France. So if you want to be kept up to speed with all the latest news coming out of the Pro Peloton, come and make sure you subscribe. Now, before we get into those 5 talking points of this year's Tour de France, let's take a look at what else is happening in the world of cycling. And really, the big news is the transfer of Matteo Trentin. He's moving from CCC where's he going again? Oh, wow, I remember now. To UAE, Team Emirates, and we'll be talking about those shortly in the show. The way Team CCC are shipping out all their top riders, it appears there is going to be no Team CCC for us to see next year. And then next up, check out this tweet that Troy sent over to me this morning from Race Radio. Yesterday, they posted this saying, "Next time you feel the urge to make fun of someone for wearing pro team kit, remember that this guy, in leading the Tour de France," I presume it's supposed to say is leading the Tour de France. So I took that picture, reverse Google searched it on Google Images. Turns out it's not even Primož Roglic. It's a young looking Keanu Reeves. But I think we should touch on this because on Saturday's show, me and Laura from the Peloton Brief were talking about people that wear pro kits. And my opinion, this is only my opinion, for me personally, is that I wouldn't really wear a professional kit or a national jersey or a national championship jersey or a rainbow jersey without feeling like I've earned it. I remember the first time that Shane Sutton handed over a GB skin suit to me, and it was a massive moment. It meant so much. The fact that this man, Shane Sutton, was giving me one meant that I'm doing something right, that I have earned my place in the here and now where I'm at. That being said, I don't believe that all kits should be earned, because there are people out there who bloody love Team Ineos. There are people out there who bloody love Jumbo Visma, and they want to show their support just like a football fan would by getting team replica kit. But I believe, and hey, tell me on this one, I believe the issue is, and why there's so much snobbery around this, is because when you're out riding and you come across somebody who's wearing full kit, for an instant, there's the chance that this might actually be a professional cyclist. Like, how many other sports is there where professionals go out into the public domain to hone their craft like cyclists? I can't think of any. So when you see a cyclist out there in their professional kit, there's a chance that that could actually be a professional rider. And I think people get annoyed because they think, oh, it might be Froome. Oh no, it's just Dave. It's just Dave from down the road. And the other thing is, when people see them, they're projecting onto these people that they think that they're the pro. When really, Dave there, that's just gone past in his Team Sky kit, just bloody loves Team Sky. He's just showing his support for the team. He's not riding around thinking, hey up, everybody's going to think I'm Froome in this. He's probably just loving his bike, loving his kit, and just loving being out there. All right, then let's talk Tour de France. And it took 8 stages for it to ignite into what was a couple of the most exciting stages in at least the past 5, maybe 8 years. It was enthralling. But we're going to save all that for later in the show. First up, let's talk about fans not wearing masks at the side of the road. We were expecting this Tour de France to have a lot less fans than I think people expected to see at the side of the road, especially on those climbs on Saturday and Sunday. And a lot of them not wearing masks, in the riders' faces, cheering them along, which is fair enough. Like, they're passionate. They're seeing some of the best riders in the world attacking some of the best, greatest roads in the world. They just get a little bit passionate and they get a little bit too close, but come on. You've got riders like Andre Greipel tweeting out this yesterday. As participants of the tour, everybody involved in the event during the actual circumstances with COVID-19 have had to make big sacrifices. It is simple to keep this event going. Respect the rules, keep the distance to us riders, and wear masks, please. Over on Jumbo-Visma's account, they tweeted this picture saying, the coronavirus is still there. We want to finish the Tour in Paris. Please wear a mask and keep your distance. This is very important. That was Tom Dumoulin saying that. Listen, I know that there's people out there who say masks don't matter, COVID doesn't exist, blah, 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 whatever. But the rules at the minute are people need to be keeping their distance from the riders. People need to be wearing masks. Because the ASO could just shut down the Tour de France like that because they fear that there's going to be too many people on the next climb not wearing masks. Regardless of whether it could spread, regardless of whether they will have it or had it or could spread it, it's not good for the Tour de France if people are just blatantly going against the rules. So nothing might happen. There might not be no positive tests of COVID, but still they have to stop the race because the public just can't be trusted. So it's not difficult. Like, I don't know why they just don't paint a line down the road. Like, there's stupid graffiti on the roads of these climbs. Just paint 2 lines down the road. Spectators, if you pass that line, you're going to get arrested. End of. Bosh. And arrest them all if that happens. But I would hate for the Tour de France to be cancelled because of a group of, and it is only a small group of people doing it, but a group of 100 people not wearing masks. If that causes the Tour de France to be cancelled, you bet your ass I'm coming to find you. Next up, and a man whose Tour de France is clearly over, is Thibaut Pinot. So Saturday's stage, we saw Thibaut Pinot just getting dropped by the main GC contenders, the riders he should be racing against. And he ended up in a group. All his team were around him. They were hugging him. They were trying to lift his spirits up. But it can't be nice for him to be here again in the same situation. It appears that he's been having problems with his bike, but I think that's down to the fact that he's been carrying all this weight of French hopes on his shoulders for so long. And I think this moment right here was the moment that he knew he was never going to win the Tour de France. Ever. And I think that's why a few of his teammates were so supportive around him. Because the Tour de France isn't over for FDJ. They've still got to ride into Paris. And potentially now he could be going for stage wins and redeem himself in some way. But one thing from this was Lance Armstrong's reaction to seeing those TV pictures of his team supporting him.
The hardest thing for me to watch today, and this is no shit. This is I couldn't watch it. Okay, I mean when Thibaut, this guy, is dropped, he's got his teammates around him and they're hugging on each other. This is the fucking Tour de France. There's no hugs in the race. JB, it's okay. It's okay.
Consoling.
So this
might be my bad, Lance. Before you read this, this might be my bad because I think you needed more hugs in your day. This would have helped a lot of situations.
My mother,
different.
My mother was very affectionate. She loved me.
I'm talking about your teammates. Your
I got hugged enough.
Such a cold-hearted bastard. And you wonder why there's so many mental issues in sports because of people like. Come on, man! Like. He is literally carrying the weight of French hopes on his shoulders. And he just can't deal with it. He's just not good enough to take that next step he needs to win the Tour de France. And he realises that now. His team realises that now. And he's got to deal with the whole of France knowing that. Come on, Lance, don't be a dick. Next up in the roundup, we can't not talk about Wout Van Aert. I speak about him most days on this new show, but what he's done over the past 9 days for his team and himself is nothing short of unbelievable. It has been, well, remember last year, we were talking about Mathieu van der Poel being this all singing, all dancing, there's nothing that this guy can't do. But do you know what? I think Wout Van Aert, he's gone beyond Mathieu van der Poel now. 2 stage wins on 2 very different, difficult stages. And not only that, he's been shepherding his Jumbo-Visma team all day. Take stage 7, for instance, the crosswind stage. It was his job to make sure that Primož Roglic did not get dropped. It was his job to ensure that Primož Roglic was at the right place at the right time when those splits went, and he did it. At no point was he even thinking about a stage win. He even said this in his interviews, but he got Primož into the position he needed to be in, and then all of a sudden, he starts sniffing a win, he goes for it, and he delivers. This time last year, he was still in hospital, but during last year's Tour de France, he suffered that horrendous crash, stage 13, I think, stage 12 or stage 13, the individual time trial, which he was looking set to win. He ended up having that massive crash and potentially wrecking his career as a professional cyclist, and he's back doing things like this. And with Wout Van Aert, there doesn't seem to be any sign of fatigue kicking in. He took a slightly shorter pull, I guess, than he would normally do on stage 9, but he still looks strong, he still looks solid, and I think he's going to get another chance to go for another stage victory, and I think he potentially might be looking at 3 stage wins throughout this whole Tour de France. I don't think he's got his eyes on that green jersey we spoke about a couple of days ago, but if that comes as a bonus from doing everything that he's doing, then great, but I don't think he's eyeing it. His sole responsibility is for Primož Roglic. But he's going to be there or thereabouts to win another stage. Mark my words. But leave your comments down below. Wout Van Aert, we spoke about it before, plenty have said it, but do we believe Wout Van Aert is currently the most versatile rider on the planet? Next up, let's talk UAE Team Emirates. A couple of stories going off in this team. First off, amazing first stage victory from Alexander Kristoff, putting the team in the yellow jersey, getting their Tour de France off on the right foot. But obviously, all eyes are on Tadej Pogacar for GC contention. And after stage 7, it looked like his Tour de France could have been bloody over. He was caught in the wrong position as the crosswinds appeared. He ended up losing 1 minute and 28 by the end of stage 7 to GC leader Adam Yates at the time. Primož Roglic was only 3 seconds behind Yatesy. So Tadej Pogacar was 1 minute 25 behind Primož Roglic. And I'm not going to lie, I thought it was all over for him. But Saturday, he came out all guns blazing, and it was amazing to see. This is the Tour de France that we wanted from this year. No more Team Ineos controlling the pace. No more Team Ineos not allowing anybody to attack because the pace is so high. And although we thought Jumbo-Visma were going to take the role of Team Ineos, they really haven't done that as well as Team Ineos have done it in the past, which has allowed people like Tadej Pogacar to go up the road and attack. And to see GC riders attacking so early on some climbs, it was just so bloody refreshing. And this kid, he, on one hand, he's riding it like a seasoned veteran, but he's also riding it like the fearless 21-year-old that he is. He's not afraid to crack. He's not afraid to explode, because at least he's going down fighting. He's refusing to give up. He knows he's lost that time and he needs to make that time back up. Both on Saturday and Sunday, he was at the forefront, making the attacks, trying to drop those GC riders from his wheel to gain back even more time. So on stage 8, he managed to claw back 40 seconds on his GC rivals, moving himself up into 9th position, 7 places up on the previous day. And on stage 9, again, he was the most aggressive GC rider, trying to form breaks, trying to get away from riders, trying to get as much time between him and as many of his rivals as possible. He ended up taking a small GC group of Primož Roglic, Egan Bernal and Mikel Landa, who surprised me to the line and obviously took the stage victory there. So not only did he claw some time back on a lot of his rivals, but he also got that time bonus too. So heading into the rest day now, he's only 44 seconds behind Primož Roglic. And the gap between Tadej Pogacar and Egan Bernal is only 23 seconds. And the time gap between Pogacar and Egan Bernal is only 23 seconds. That means there's only 2 seconds difference really in the gap between Pogacar and Bernal, and then the gap between Bernal and Roglic. So even though he's still only in 7th place, if Pogacar can maintain his form, if he's not burnt too many matches, if he recovers well in this rest day, the next mountaintop finish could be his, and he could put in some big time gaps between him and his rivals, getting him right back onto that podium. Mark my words, we're looking at a Slovenian 1-2 on the podium in Paris. And then finally, let's touch on this one with Team Ineos. Obviously, we're seeing Egan Bernal, who looks like he's coming into his own a lot more. He looked a lot more comfortable on stage 9 than he has done all tour. And hopefully he's going to get better and better and really challenge Primož Roglic. I don't want either of these riders to dominate this Tour de France. I don't want either of them to win by minutes. I want it to be a close tour, and I think to make it a close tour, even though Primož Roglic is still looking far superior than everybody else, is we need Egan Bernal to start bringing some form. And if he does that, he could really challenge Primož Roglic, especially when the altitude goes above 2,000 meters. I know it doesn't do it often, but it does on one stage, and if he's willing to give it everything he's got, he could put some time into Primož Roglic there for sure. But another thing to touch on with Team Ineos, and in the ITV commentary yesterday, Ned Bolton mentioned it. I had a quick look on Twitter to try and find anything more about this. But yesterday, for some reason, Team Ineos had taken voluntary COVID-19 tests.
Of course, of COVID-19, and news that we're just getting is that voluntarily Ineos decided to take COVID-19 tests this morning, and those tests are being processed as we speak, and hopefully the results will come through fairly soon, and we all cross fingers they'll all be negative.
Bearing in mind, this is the day prior to the rest day when everybody was going to get tested again anyway. Does that not make anybody else think weird? Does that not make anybody else think, are they trying to cover their backs? Are they potentially looking at making these tests positive to pull the team out, to save face if Primož is getting too far up the road? If Egan Bernal's having a bad day and they're all just getting dropped and it's making the team look bad, can they pull those tests out later down the line and say, Egan tested positive, we're going to have to pull the team out. Sorry, guys. Egan's got COVID. Let's get him out of there. You know I love a conspiracy theory here on the Chris Pritchard Cycling News Show, so let me pass it off to you. Do you think it was just Team Ineos being Team Ineos and Dave Brailsford being Dave Brailsford, crossing all the T's, dotting all the I's and just getting ahead of the rest of the tests from today? Or are they doing their own tests just in case these tests that get done on the rest day come back positive? Well, they can check and say, well, we had ours done the day before. Your test must be wrong because this one clearly says we're all negative, so we can all stay in the race. Maybe that's the case. But I like to think that they're giving themselves an option and an out in case it all goes tits up. That's what I prefer. That's a better narrative than them doing a test to make sure that these tests match up to these tests. But leave your comments down below. Shall we start a conspiracy about it? Let's do it. Right, and I think that's it. No doubt I've missed something, so feel free to drop your comments down below. Let me know what I've missed. Let me know who your Tour de France rider of 2020 is so far, and we'll be back again tomorrow with all the action from stage 1 of the Dauphiné, as well as stage 10 of Le Tour de France. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure, if you're not done already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you don't want any spoilers prior to watching the highlights at night, make sure you unclick that notification bell. If you want to be the first to the video, hit that notification bell. If you've not enjoyed the video for whatever reason, hit that dislike button, and I'll see you tomorrow.